I think the point is that she lied about the colour discussion of Archie's skin and called the royal family racist on absolutely bogus grounds.
Tom Bower just sat down for one of the most explosive interviews of the year. And by the time it was over, Meghan Markle's carefully constructed image was in pieces on the floor. We are talking about a man who has written 29 books, a man who does not scare easily, does not back down, and does not write about people he likes. And right now, Tom Bower has Meghan Markle in his crosshairs. And everything he is saying is backed by receipts. Netflix, gone. Spotify, gone. The charity, collapsing. The jam, sitting in a warehouse. The money, running out. And this week, it all came crashing down at once. So buckle up, because we are going through every single bombshell, one by one. And trust me, there are a lot of them. The book that broke the internet before it even hit shelves. Let's start at the very beginning. Before Tom Bower's new book, Betrayal, had even hit bookshop shelves, before a single copy had been sold to a single reader, Meghan Markle's team was already in full panic mode. Think about that for a second. The book had not been released, nobody had read it, and yet her spokesperson fired off a statement calling the book and I want you to remember this phrase, deranged conspiracy and melodrama. They accused Bower of crossing the line from criticism into fixation. They called him someone who constructs ever more elaborate theories about people he does not know. Now, here is the question you have to ask yourself. If the book was so deranged, so ridiculous, so melodramatic, why panic before anyone had read it? Why not let the book land and let the public laugh it off? Because they know what is in it. That is why. And here is the delicious irony. That frantic, desperate statement did not hurt Tom Bower one bit. It pushed his book straight to #1 on Amazon, overnight. Meghan's own team handed him a bestseller on a silver platter. When Bower was asked directly in the interview whether he has a problem with Meghan, whether he simply does not like her, he did not flinch. He said plainly, "No, I don't like her. I've written 29 books. I don't write about people who like me or I like them. My whole criteria for writing is not whether I like them, but these are people who are famous, seek to influence us, seek to profit from their fame, and seek to manipulate their image." That is not a vendetta. That is a journalist doing his job. And his conclusion after years of investigation? That Meghan Markle is a person who has done, in his words, huge damage to the royal family, who has been deeply inaccurate on many issues, and who he describes as someone who simply sucks value out of every institution she attaches herself to, takes from it, exploits it, and profits from it, without giving anything of genuine substance back. Strong words, but as we are about to see, the evidence he presents is difficult to argue with. The Netflix collapse and the jam nobody is buying. Let's talk about the headline that set this entire story on fire. On March 6, 2026, Netflix officially confirmed it was ending its partnership with Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand, As Ever. And this was not just a business decision. This was a verdict. Netflix had been an equity partner in this venture. That means they had actual financial skin in the game, real money, real investment, and they walked away. Now, predictably, Meghan's team immediately tried to spin this as a planned, mutual, empowering moment of growth. Her spokesperson released a statement saying, "As Ever was always ready to stand on its own." Netflix diplomatically said they were glad to have played a role. But here is what the numbers actually tell us, and numbers do not spin. Meghan's lifestyle show, With Love Meghan, launched in March 2025. Season 1 failed to break into Netflix's top 300 shows. 300 shows. Season 2 pulled in roughly 2 million views and missed the top charts entirely. According to Variety, it ranked 3,436th out of all shows on the platform for the first half of the year. Let me put that in perspective for you. There are thousands of shows, documentaries, films, and specials on Netflix. With Love, Meghan ranked 3,436th. That is not a rounding error. That is not a slow start. That is a disaster. And the products? Even worse. Variety reported that Netflix was sitting on a surplus of as ever goods, teas, baking mixes, jams, totaling more than $10 million in value, sitting in a warehouse, unsold. Now let's talk about the jam specifically, because this is where the story gets truly remarkable. Tom Bower did not simply repeat what Meghan's team was saying about this product. He went and investigated it. He tracked down the actual manufacturers, not a charming farmhouse kitchen in Montecito, not Meghan lovingly stirring strawberries with little Lilibet watching from a high chair, a bottling plant in Ohio and Illinois. The jars were sourced separately. The strawberries Meghan had so beautifully described picking from her own garden, the ones she talked about with such warmth and authenticity. The product does not reflect that story at all. Bower confirmed that when he tracked down both the bottling plant and the jar manufacturers, they had sold very few jars to the plant. The claimed figure of $27 million in jam sales? Bower went to the factory. He checked with the bottle manufacturer. He says flatly, "You mustn't believe everything they put out." The candles that arrived to customers, without wicks. The jam described by reviewers as watery and runny. The entire As Ever brand, which was supposed to be Meghan's crowning lifestyle achievement, has become a symbol of something far more damaging than commercial failure. It has become a symbol of inauthenticity. And here is the financial timeline you need to understand. The original Netflix deal signed in 2020 was reportedly worth around $100 million. By August 2025, that had already been downgraded to what is called a first look deal. That means Netflix gets first refusal on new projects, but there are no guaranteed paychecks, no more blockbuster advances, payment by results only, and the results have not been good. Spotify went the same way. When that deal ended in 2023, a senior Spotify executive called Harry and Meghan, on the record, absolute grifters. That is not a disgruntled anonymous source whispering to a tabloid. That is a named executive, on record, at one of the biggest audio platforms in the world. So the question has to be asked, how much money do Harry and Meghan actually have left, and how long can it last? The charity meltdown. Numbers that should alarm everyone. While the Netflix story was dominating headlines, something even more revealing was quietly emerging from Harry and Meghan's charity filings. The Archwell Foundation, now rebranded Archwell Philanthropies, which in itself tells you something, had its 2024 tax returns made public this week, and the numbers are alarming. In 2024, the foundation received just $2.1 million in donations. Compare that to $13 million in 2021. That is a collapse of more than 80% in donor interest in just 3 years. Meanwhile, expenses and charitable grants reached $5.1 million. That is a deficit of $2.5 million in a single year. To put that in plain English, they spent more than twice what they brought in. At the same time, the charity has fired 60% of its workforce. Senior staff have been leaving for years. At least 5 executives have departed. Most recently, James Holt, who had been with Harry since before the wedding and was one of the last people who truly understood what the couple had been through inside the palace, resigned and returned to Britain. Their chief communications officer, hired in March 2025, also left within a year. PR crisis managers who reviewed these filings publicly did not mince words. One said the couple's spending creates the appearance they are using the foundation as, and I quote, a personal toy chest of interests. Another warned that without radical transparency, not rebrands, not photo opportunities, the organization faces what he called total failure. But perhaps the most jaw-dropping detail of all? In a prior tax filing, the couple reported spending just 1 hour per week on the foundation's work. 1 hour per week. These are 2 people who left the royal family, gave up their roles, walked away from everything. In part, they claimed to pursue their philanthropic work with greater freedom. And they were spending 1 hour a week on it. Think about what that actually means. Think about what it says about where their priorities really lie. Now, Tom Bower goes deeper than any financial filing can, because he spent years gathering insider accounts, people who were in the room, on the ground, watching. And what those accounts describe is a pattern of behavior that goes far beyond mismanagement. Colombia, Africa, and the self-obsession on display. Let's start with Colombia. Meghan was invited to Colombia by the vice president, a woman who grew up in genuine poverty in a mining village, a woman whose own children had to be evacuated from the country under death threats. She invited Meghan hoping the Duchess would contribute meaningfully to children's charities. Instead, Meghan gave a speech about how women must find their voices. She talked about herself. She talked about how proud she was of little Lilibet finding her voice. She sat next to a woman whose family had faced real, life-threatening danger and made the entire occasion about her own personal narrative. Tom Bower described it plainly. She is, he said, so self-obsessed, so immune to anyone else's reality, that she cannot help but make everything, every room, every speech, every cause, about her own story. And then there is Tom Bower's revelation that Meghan, despite the famous engagement under the African stars, actually hates Africa. She hated the trip to South Africa, hated staying in what Bower calls a glorified tent. Everything about it conflicted with her expectation of how her life should look and feel. Now let's talk about Sentebale, the charity Harry co-founded specifically to help African children living with HIV and AIDS. A genuinely good cause, a charity that was doing important work. Bower reveals that Harry had not visited the charity's project in Lesotho for 5 years. 5 years. The charity's chief executive, Sophie Chandauka, described as a formidable woman who was not there for Sussex PR, told Harry bluntly, "Your image, your constant attacks on the royal family are damaging our ability to raise money." Harry did not take that well. The final break came at a polo match in Florida. The charity was raising over £1 million at the event. Meghan arrived at the last minute with Serena Williams. She demanded champagne. The event was sponsored by a bourbon brand. There was no champagne, no ice bucket. She sent a member of staff to go and buy one. Harry's team won the match. Sophie Chandauka was supposed to present the trophy. But Meghan, knowing that cameras were rolling for her Netflix series, pushed Chandauka aside and presented the cup herself. The footage of Sophie Chandauka being physically maneuvered out of position so Meghan could step in front of the cameras has been described as, in Bower's words, absolutely horrendous in terms of Meghan's PR. What happened next is extraordinary. Harry called Chandauka and demanded she put out a statement saying this had always been the plan and that it reflected well on Meghan. Chandauka refused. Harry, according to insiders, went berserk. Chandauka subsequently went public and called him out, and Harry resigned from the charity he had co-founded. Let that sink in. The charity created to help children dying of AIDS in Africa. Harry walked away from it because the CEO would not lie to protect his wife's image on a Netflix series. The title threat and why Harry is terrified of William. Here is something Bower says Harry is genuinely terrified about, and with very good reason. When Prince Andrew lost his titles, the official line for years had been that it was constitutionally impossible to strip a royal of their titles without an act of Parliament. It was treated as an immovable constitutional fact. Experts cited it. Palace sources repeated it. And then someone simply signed some letters patent, and Andrew was stripped overnight. That constitutional impossibility turned out to be a fudge that could be undone in an afternoon. Harry knows this. According to Bower, Harry is acutely aware that once William becomes king, which given King Charles's declining health could come sooner than many people expect, he faces exactly the same fate. William does not want a rival hostile royal family operating out of California. He does not want Harry and Meghan continuing to monetize the Sussex titles, using royal status to sell jam and appear at paid events in Australia at $1,700 a seat. And here is the crucial detail. The Sandringham Agreement, signed when Harry and Meghan first stepped back from royal duties, specifically prevented them from monetizing their royal titles. Bauer argues they have broken that agreement repeatedly. In Colombia, in Nigeria, and now with these Australian appearances. If William reaches the throne and concludes enough is enough, the mechanism to act already exists. Andrew proved it. And Bauer is clear. William would not hesitate to strip not just Harry and Meghan of their titles, but potentially their children as well, because he does not need and will not tolerate a rival hostile royal operation headquartered in Montecito. This Australian trip, by the way, is already a PR disaster before it has even begun. A petition with 32,000 signatures demanding that public money not be used for the visit has been circulating. The Sussex team scrambled to say the trip would not cost Australian taxpayers anything. But as one commentator put it, people know. They can see the pattern. Colombia, Nigeria, Canada, and now Australia. Government resources, official access, taxpayer-funded infrastructure, all used to provide the backdrop for a couple who have commercially packaged their royal identity while claiming to have stepped back from it. The grift, as Bauer bluntly puts it, is becoming visible to everyone. Hollywood is not waiting for Meghan. With the Netflix deal gone and Archewell hemorrhaging money, something interesting has started happening in Hollywood. Meghan's allies have been briefing that she is planning a dramatic return to acting. Eric Roberts, Julia Roberts' brother, gave an interview this week claiming Meghan will return to acting, and, in his words, blow everybody's mind. His wife, a casting director, called it time. There is just one significant problem with all of this. Meghan herself told Variety in 2022, on record, "My intention is absolutely not to return to acting." She has been saying for years that acting is behind her. And Hollywood, despite the cheerleading from Eric Roberts, is not exactly rolling out the red carpet. One industry insider described Meghan as someone who is so entitled in her mindset that she lacks the discipline and humility required to genuinely compete in a field she walked away from years ago. The assessment was stark. She wants to show up as the A-list headliner, not as someone who has to earn her way back. And then there was the moment that said more than any press release ever could. At a recent premiere, actor Jack Quaid was asked on camera about starring alongside Meghan in an upcoming Amazon film. He had a visible, unmistakable deer-in-headlights moment. He paused. He said, and this is a direct quote, "It was insane," and then immediately pivoted to praise the rest of the cast. Not Meghan, the rest of the cast. In Hollywood, if you have nothing nice to say about someone, you say something glowing about someone else and move on quickly. That is exactly what Jack Quaid did. Not a single word of praise. Not one. Just, "It was insane," and a rapid subject change. That tells you everything you need to know about how the industry actually feels about Meghan's return. Tina Brown's warning, and why William is the wild card. Now, you might expect all the concern about Harry and Meghan to come exclusively from critics, from royalists, from people who were never fans. But this week, a warning came from a very different and very unexpected direction. Tina Brown, author of the Palace Papers, a woman once considered something of a Sussex sympathizer, published a piece on her Substack asking a pointed and unsettling question. Are the Windsors underestimating the Sussex problem? Her warning was not that Harry and Meghan are wonderful and misunderstood and need to be welcomed back. It was the opposite. She argued that the royal family has not properly gripped the danger the couple continues to pose to the institution, to William's future reign, and to the monarchy's international reputation. She pointed specifically to the Nigeria trip. Harry and Meghan flew on a private plane provided by a Nigerian businessman who, it later emerged, was wanted in the United States on money laundering charges. No palace advisors, no due diligence. And Bauer draws the comparison explicitly. The same pattern, he says, that brought Prince Andrew down. Flying private with questionable figures whose backgrounds nobody had checked, because nobody with proper institutional knowledge was in the room to stop it. Bauer himself disagrees with Brown's proposed solution, which involves bringing the Sussexes back into the fold in some limited controlled capacity. His view, and the view of those close to William, is that letting Harry and Meghan back into proximity with the royal family would simply give them new material, new secrets, and a new platform. The threat, Bauer argues, needs to be managed from a distance, not embraced, managed. And Prince William, for his part, has remained completely silent. No Netflix series, no tell-all interview, no memoir. He and Catherine have absorbed years of attacks, including revelations from Harry's memoir about the most personal and private family moments, with what Bauer describes as dignified silence, knowing that anything said publicly could end up in a People magazine article or another Sussex book. But silence, as Bauer makes clear, does not mean inaction. The financial reality. And how long can this last? Let's bring this all together, because the financial picture, when you lay it all out at once, is genuinely staggering. Security alone for Harry and Meghan runs between $1.5 and $2 million per year. The mortgage on their $14 million Montecito mansion. Staff. Running costs. Bauer conservatively estimates minimum annual expenditure at $3 to $4 million, meaning they need to earn significantly more than that just to break even. And the revenue streams are drying up one by one. Spotify, gone. The original Netflix deal, gone. As ever, operating independently, with $10 million worth of product sitting unsold in a warehouse. Archwell running a multi-million-dollar annual deficit and shedding staff at an alarming rate. The spare money, reportedly over $20 million, will not last forever at this rate of spending. Bauer estimates their annual expenditure requires earnings of $4 to $5 million minimum. And right now, the clearest income stream on the horizon is paid personal appearances, like the Australian Health Farm event at $1,700 a seat. That is what the financial situation has come to. And here is Bauer's broader thesis, the argument that runs through his entire book. Harry and Meghan made their initial money by selling one specific product: access to the inside of the royal family, the stories, the grievances, the accusations. That product had enormous value for a period of time. The Oprah interview, the Netflix documentary, the memoir, enormous audiences, enormous checks. But that product has a shelf life. Once you have told those stories, once the public has heard them, once the goodwill, or the outrage, or the curiosity has been exhausted, what is left? What do you sell next? Bauer's answer is that they have run out of product. They have run out of people willing to buy the narrative. Netflix said it. Spotify said it. The donors said it. The public is saying it. The couple that left Britain claiming they were silenced has spent 5 years trying to make noise. The trouble, as one insider put it this week, is that nobody is listening anymore. The endgame, and what comes next. So where does all of this actually leave Harry and Meghan? Tom Bauer's assessment is bleak but clear. They are, in his words, falling stars. Globally known, but globally diminished. Their reputation crumbling, their status eroding, their finances shrinking, and the public watching it all play out in real time. Is there a way back to the royal family? Bauer does not believe so. Not publicly with the king at the Invictus Games in Birmingham, which is exactly what Harry wants. Not with William, who Bauer says is appalled by Meghan, shocked by what he sees as her duplicity, her pretense of wanting to be part of the team, and the revelations that followed in the Oprah interviews, the Netflix series, and the memoir. The question of titles, whether Harry and Meghan remain the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, whether their children carry royal styling, will not, Bauer warns, be settled by a public debate. It will be settled by letters patent, quietly, decisively, just as it was with Andrew. And one final card remains in Meghan's hand. Bauer raises it himself, almost with a note of resigned inevitability. A book, a Meghan memoir. He believes it will happen. He believes it will be exceptionally well written, not truthful, but compelling. Because unlike his books, which are subject to legal constraints and verification, Meghan's memoir could include conversations with the late Queen and other members of the royal family that are completely unverifiable and unchallengeable. That, Bauer says, is her ultimate get-out-of-jail card, her ultimate source of money. And more than any jam that failed to sell, more than any Netflix deal that collapsed, more than any charity that was run into the ground, a Meghan memoir is the financial and reputational threat that keeps those inside the palace up at night. The couple that arrived in California claiming to be liberated is now, by every measurable indicator, running out of road. The money is thinning. The deals are gone. The goodwill has evaporated. The industry has moved on. Tom Bauer has been saying this for years, and right now, in real time, it is playing out exactly as he predicted. The endgame is here, and it is not rosy. So there you have it. Every single bombshell from Tom Bauer's most explosive interview yet. The Netflix collapse, the charity meltdown, the jam nobody bought, the title threat from William, the Hollywood cold shoulder, and the financial reality that is becoming impossible to hide. So I want to hear from you. Do you think Harry and Meghan find a way back? Do you think Meghan's rumored memoir becomes the nuclear option that reshapes everything? Do you think William strips the titles the moment he reaches the throne? Or do you think this whole story quietly fades, not with a bang, but with a slow, undignified silence? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This community always has sharp takes on stories like this, and I genuinely want to know where you think this ends. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button. It helps more people find this content and join the conversation. And make sure you are subscribed with the bell notification turned on, because this story is far from over. New developments are breaking almost every week now, and we will be right here covering every single one of them as they unfold. See you in the next one.